But this is a big issue on TV3 New Day. It is Thursday, and so it is the turn of the women to also share their thoughts and opinions on matters that are pertinent to you and me. And so joining me in the studios this morning, we haven't seen her in a while. Akosia Menu is the Deputy CEO of the National Youth Authority, and she's here. She's been globetrotting, literally, attending conferences, speaking here and there. But it's good to have you back. How are you doing?
I'm well, Bella.
How long have you been back for?
Oh, I've been around
for a while, eh? Okay, the last time I checked, you were in the UK for quite a while, like a month, and then you had to go to.
I was there for just like 4 days.
Just 4 days? Why did it look like it was a month? Maybe you kept posting, that's why. And I know you went for another conference somewhere else. I've forgotten where.
African Union.
Yes, you were there as well. How did it go?
It went really well.
Yeah?
Yes.
Good to have you in the studios.
Thank you.
And Nana Iya Chimpim Jantwa is the General Secretary of the CPP, and she joins us. Good morning.
Good morning, darling.
How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you, my dear.
Had a good week so far?
Yes, a bit tiring, but it's okay with everything
well.
going on.
It's
not easy. When you watch your petrol gauge, it's stressful.
Well, because I said she buy fuel for all of us today.
Oh,
you won't buy for us.
That's stressful, you know.
I know. It's not easy for anyone at all. Lawyer Joyce Power Muktari is here. She's also a special aide to former President John Dramani Mahama and former Deputy Transport Minister. Good morning, lawyer.
Good morning.
How you doing?
I'm very well, thank you.
Everything okay? I'm good. Or would you rather be the one to sponsor us for fuel this week?
Don't bring Wahala on it.
I shouldn't bring Wahala on it. Oh, she's sorted.
Don't forget I have very young kids, so all my money is spoken for.
I can imagine. It is well. But let's get into our first story for today. We'll be talking about the new minimum wage that was set yesterday. And so the National Tripartite Committee, in line with Section 1131A of the Labour Act 2003, Act 651, has reviewed the national daily minimum wage to 14.88 Ghana cedis. So the new minimum wage will take effect from January 1, 2023. And the committee concluded on this new wage after a meeting that was held yesterday, November 16, 2022. Now, what were the factors that led to this increment? So the Tripartite Committee says that it took into account the current economic challenges, cost of living, sustainability of businesses, and desirability of attaining a higher level of employment, as well as the need for rapid restoration of macroeconomic stability. Now, if it's 14.88 Ghana cedis per the current BOG rates, that means that's just about $1. If you calculate it, that's per day, by the way. So if it's by 1 month, which is 31 days, let's say, that'll be at 461 Ghana cedis, 28 pesos. That's how much you'll be earning if you're being paid that minimum wage. But at least we know that per what the Tripartite Committee has said, no one should be paid below that minimum wage. But how is the union taking this? Let's listen to a labor consultant who's not too happy about this increment.
Yeah, I would say yes, the tripartite committee has done something. I must first of all commend them. However, I think it is below expectation. When you look at it, as at the time the new minimum wage was determined, it was 13.53. And to the exchange rate by then, when you convert it into dollars, it was $2.24. Now, the new minimum wage is 14.88. If you look at the interbank exchange rate now, it's 14.5, which is little above $1. And the implementation is not this year, next year. By the time it gets to next year, the exchange rate might have changed, which will be less than $1. So you realize that this increases or the increment that has come will be eroded by January. Now inflation is around 40%.
And so that's Abraham Iyali. He's a labor consultant, and he says that this is woefully inadequate. In fact, if you look at the minimum wage that certain countries are paying per hour, which is something that we mentioned in the introduction earlier, you'd realize that we're way below. If you look at the UK, and some will argue that the UK's economy is much better, but we all know that they're also reeling under some economic hardship as well. But even for them, their minimum wage is £9.50. And so that's about $11.43 per hour. If you go to France, it is about $10.71 per hour. Germany is paying 10.45 euros per hour. So that's $10.59 per hour. And so clearly, this shows that it is woefully inadequate for us, especially when inflation has hit 40.4%. And so, how and why is this being allowed? We'll start off with Akosia. I mean, what do you make of this increment? Clearly, listening to the labor consultant saying that this really is not enough.
Good morning, Bella, once again. I believe that given the current climate, and when I say the current climate, I mean the economic challenges that the country is facing at the moment. High prices, inflation, fuel price conversations. I mean, you are literally pleading that we support, I mean, you said it as a joke, but these are the realities. So you couple all the day-to-day expenditure that the ordinary person will go through. If you look at the numbers, it adds up to what the labor expert was saying, that it's woefully inadequate. Yet when you make the comparison to other countries, and these are developed countries with wages that are more considerably 100 times better than what we face here. Ordinarily, you would want that there is some sort of parity between what you earn and what you spend. It would be easier for everybody to have a wage that covers literally everything and still have something left for investment. But I don't think that it's entirely possible, but it's a work in progress. Year in, year out, when the minimum wage is discussed, there's never been a moment where everybody's in agreement that yes, indeed, this is right and meets, and everybody would have coverage of some one way or the other. I was just trying to pull up some information, but usually the wage rate applies to all of Ghana except for the free trade areas and free trade zones and employees who negotiate and establish contracts and whatnot. Some people don't even need to, I mean, they are better paid. They don't even know what the wage rate is. But if you give the current conditions, it doesn't mean that it would wash away or reduce the burden somewhat. I literally need to do the numbers on that because I think this, I saw this last night and I'm still trying to get some data. But I certainly would agree with him if he feels disappointed because there's a sort of a storm that has been brewing for a while in terms of prices and inflation and eating into some of the conversations we're having this morning. But it's work in progress. It's ultimately a country that's would want to move towards a better minimum wage, which would also help to cover basic things like health insurance and whatnot that people should have some entitlement to. So it's not the best of news, but it's still important to acknowledge that there's still been an increase despite the challenges. It doesn't quite meet what is expected, but there's still a bit of a move of the needle towards a certain point of progress. So I think that
but 14.88 can't even buy you bread. Let's just say that you're earning the minimum wage daily. How much is bread? That's 20 Ghana cedis on the market.
That's you're buying a whole loaf, right?
Well, yes. But if you have a big family,
and
unfortunately,
I don't think
you
it
have
ever
to think of
was,
some of those
it
things.
could always buy.
But I'm just giving an example. Even fuel.
But it cements
You
what I'm
can't
saying.
even buy a liter of fuel with
Take
that.
it to last year around this time. You could probably buy a loaf of bread.
Exactly.
Yes. So it's like what I said in my premise. I did say that the current conditions of high prices, inflation, and all of that would make it literally a drop in the ocean. It wouldn't have any impact. But if we are to ride the storm, evidently, as government has admitted, we would see some.
When you say ride the storm, who is riding the storm? Because it looks as if day in, day out, citizens are complaining and saying we're the only ones who are reeling under the hardship because clearly we're not seeing any policies that are making life even easier for us.
Bella, I think that
in actual fact, you're rather introducing certain taxes that will be taking more from us.
Bella, I think that one of the most difficult things is admitting that there are challenges, even for any government. Admitting that there's a challenge. The president spoke to this a couple of weeks ago. The challenges are not peculiar to Ghana. We've seen our neighbors also reeling from shocks, inflation, currency issues. You take Nigeria, for instance. Theirs is on they are having a meltdown of sorts, and if you've had conversations with people who live there, it's almost pointless. They don't even know where the country is headed. They are there's a level of despondency which we are yet to experience here. You compare, you make a comparison to even, and if you brought in the wage rates of France and UK, like you said, you look at the rising cost even in America. I've never seen 100% increase in any product on any shelf in the US. And I'm not to say that I go to the US all the time, but a few visits here and then, family telling you, you know, you go regular cooking oil, which was going for $9. Next time you go on, then you see it for $24. We've seen videos go viral from last year where Ghanaians outside are admonishing that, you know what, there is a global challenge, and usually these things trickle down over time to developing countries. So it's not surprising. However, the buffers that would help us reduce burdens for a developing country like us, truth be told, isn't quite there. Because one of the legacies of the COVID pandemic is eroding all the things that we could have used as a buffer. And this is not something that I could tell you that, okay, Bella, by December 18th, our problems will be solved. But I would believe that, given projections, I've seen Bloomberg make some projections about some growth next year, about things improving somewhat in July. We're looking at oil prices go to a level that we haven't seen since year 2000.
I think it's really going to improve. Because if you listen to the economists as well, they're telling us that we should brace ourselves for a storm even next year.
Realizing that Ghana isn't insulated from global shocks. That's fact. So long as we are still importing our oil, we're still going to have these market prices impact on cost of living as well. If we get to producing if we get to adding value to our crude as we produce here, I think we'd go to the levels of other countries who refine their own oils.
Why are we not doing it?
Actually, well, I don't want to use the cliche plans are far advanced, but I think we could have gotten there years ago. But steps are being made towards that, and it's not as simple a process as setting up a kitchen and cooking. It's really heavy, capital intensive, and takes a while. And this government is committed to doing that. But let's not forget the times are not peculiar just to Ghana. The things that impact on prices here is not just us as well. But the commitment to seeing and being empathetic to the situation. I mean, anybody can say whatever they want, but the president has made it clear that there is a crisis. He is, committed to seeing that we get out of that economy.
Is he really? I mean, we've been told that one of the major reasons why we're here today is because of the finance minister. Maybe he should step down and allow someone who is, more experienced in this field to handle the situation, because clearly he hasn't done much for us. Why is he still there?
Bella, one of the things, I don't think that was the topic we were going to launch.
Well, you're talking about the fact that the president says he's doing everything. And I'm saying that one of the major reasons is because people say the finance minister is not helping.
I'll give you, in the history of Ghana, no finance minister has had a smooth ride. Every now and then, Ghanaians rise up in arms calling for the head of finance minister. I can give you previous administrations and whatever they said. But the point is, let's look at the challenges that, I'm not looking at the person, okay, or what he, because if I was to take the person, his work ethic, his commitment to work is unrivaled. But when we look at the conditions plaguing us, so for instance, there's conversation on why was Ghana downgraded. We talk about the downgrades. One of the things that was considered that we don't even talk about is what they call the environmental social policy, where they are saying that Ghana's clamping down on mining activities somewhat is impacting on foreign businesses here in Ghana. And you think that if a government rises up to protect its own water bodies, why should a rating agency punish us for doing that? It's a protection mechanism for the citizens, right? But it has an adverse effect on rating, and you wouldn't even think that should be the consideration. When ratings get affected, it means going back to the capital market to raise funding for whatever gets impacted. It's not that we're in a position where we are like in Qatar, where the World Cup is going to be held, where there's so much abundance of funding and whatnot. No, this is a developing country that, with the government that came on the back of another government that also has to pay off legacy debts while also rolling out its policies and making sure that what they said they will do, they will do. And it's not the challenges, I think the test of leadership is to rise certain challenges and make sure that you still have your citizenry at heart. The question is, does he have it? And I believe that on any given day, Nana Akufo-Addo has shown his commitment to the Ghanaian people.
Ghanaians don't see that.
You can't see it, especially when it's as difficult as these times are. The cynicism is there. You hear people saying all sorts of things. People are insulting leaders. Even people who should know better are saying all sorts of things that they shouldn't be saying. But it's important that we recognize that it is not peculiar to us. Instilling hope, inspiring hope, and saying that let's, tighten our belts a little bit more and ride the storm is admitting that the challenges are there, that I'm not sure, like, where's the light at the end of the tunnel? When COVID came, it was similar. Like, when is it going to end? And you had former President, the likes of Obama, saying that the legacy of the pandemic is still there, and it's going to be there for even 5 to 10 years, So for us, for a country that was taking bold steps in agriculture, infrastructure, education, all these come on the back of spending that clearly, if you would say that let's hold off and make money before we spend on people, you're never going to do anything. So you take up these responsibilities, and along the way, when you are impacted by two major external shocks, a once in 100 years pandemic, nobody can tell me that any government has ever experienced, any government in Ghana has experienced a 1 in 100 years pandemic that shut down economies, that saw increase in rates in the countries like from China to Japan to countries that were better off, to Germany saying that we're going back to we are reneging on the laws we put up when it comes to fiscal prudence and all that. So I shudder to think that we might believe that it was all perfect and we're in paradise. Certainly not. But it's a situation, and that situation, beyond prayer and putting certain policies in place, would have to hope that things will get better.
Well, the IMF did say that as much as we're blaming the external shocks as the reason why we're where we are, it's also because of, internal decisions that we made. So we cannot continually blame, COVID-19, Russia-Ukraine war, and keep saying that that's the reason that we find ourselves where we are. Because even the people that we're negotiating to come and bail us out are saying that there were some internal factors that led to where we are today.
And the IMF does not still dismiss the fact that COVID-19 and the
they still say, but that's the thing that government communicators never really admit to, that they constantly say that it is external shocks. You never really hear them say that it's because we have not managed the economy well. It's because of certain policies that we implemented or did not implement, which is why we're here today.
I don't think that in the IMF negotiations and the conversations that have gone on so far, the IMF hasn't said that it's mismanagement of the economy that got us where we are. At least we have to be clear on that.
But they have said that it's internal factors.
There are internal factors. For instance, if we are not meeting revenue targets, it's an internal factor. It doesn't mean that you are not mismanaging your economy. Why are we not meeting revenue targets off the back of a pandemic where economies and factories and companies and whatnot and targets are not met? That's an internal problem. But it doesn't mean that you are mismanaging your economy.
So you haven't mismanaged the economy?
I do not believe that the economy has been mismanaged.
Not believing is different. Have you mismanaged or not?
We have not mismanaged.
You have not mismanaged the economy
I'll be very emphatic on that.
Even with all the allegations being leveled against the ministers in terms of how they've managed things?
Bella, people say things all the time they cannot substantiate. They throw things into the air all the time. The question is, can you prove that yes, indeed, there was mismanagement? There are difficult decisions that have had to be taken, especially under this current government. Decisions that ordinarily no government would even, seeing that the trouble is brewing and saying that, let's stop this at a certain level. Having the I don't want to use the word balls, but having the courage to even take that step in itself is leadership.
Okay.
So mismanagement is the last thing that could be associated. That should be associated with this government.
Nanaya,
and the IMF has not stated anywhere that this government, this economy has been mismanaged.
Nobody has said that the IMF has said that. What I'm saying is the IMF has also come out to say that there are some internal factors that have also led us to where we are today.
If you are not
let me bring Nanaya
target is an internal problem, but it doesn't mean that you mismanage the economy.
Nanaya, I mean, looking at the new minimum wage and the fact that things are very difficult, look at inflation. It is 40.4%. I mean, if I'm a worker and I'm being told that this is my daily minimum wage, I don't think I'll be excited about it because I can barely survive on 461 Ghana cedis a month at this point. What do you think?
Bella, thank you very much. Greetings to your viewers and greetings to my colleagues and comrades in the CPP. And I say a good morning to my sisters in the studio. Is it Akosia and Joyce? How are you? Akosia, how are you? Good. You're all welcome. But you see, Bella, I want to say that hope does not fill a hungry tummy. Hope. The one who is hungry and has no money does not survive on hope. When your cost of living is rising, you need to see pragmatic measures by the custodian who is in charge of the system. You see, sovereignty and power, according to the constitution of this country, lies in the people of this nation. And the people of this nation, at any particular point in time, on 8 December or 7 December in every 4-year cycle, decides to give that power to a group of people. And when this power is given to this group of people, it is expected that they do good by us. Their responsibility to ensure that the economy is run properly. Force majeure, sicknesses, disasters, you cannot predict it. That is why you need to have plans that will insulate you against any form of disaster. That is why we save. That is why we invest. Why do we save and why do we invest? We do that because there is an expectancy that something might happen that you would have to fall on your savings. And that is what government should do. That is what people who are given responsibilities should do. Bella, you see, I was doing just a cursory on top of the head calculation. This amount you are talking, is it hourly or daily?
Daily.
So, a typical family of 3, at the minimum, will spend about 200 Ghana cedis a day.
Based on what?
Based on the food that they will eat, based on the transport. I didn't even calculate it with those who have cars. I use normal transport, food, 3 children, mother and father, 5. A piece of yam, 15 cedis, 20 cedis, a small one. They can all finish it one day. Let's say contomere, onions, everything. I put all the ingredients that will make a meal. And I used only 1 meal. I mean, granting that the kids will be in school, you give them some money, they will eat from school canteen. In the afternoon, you are working, you are not home. So I just put it in pieces. And from what I would do, I know how much these ingredients cost. Put in a sachet water, which is 5, the minimum, it is 50 pesos. And let's say that in a day, they do 10, that is 5 cedis.
Yeah.
Do you get me? So if I put everything together, I'm doing 200 cedis a day.
That's below the minimum wage.
Very much below.
I mean, that's above, actually. The minimum
yes,
wage is
above.
below that 200
Yes, I mean,
Ghana cedis.
below what you get at the end of the month. Granted that you are taking the minimum wage raw, without any allowances, without nothing, 416. How do you make workers worse off? Because anything that you do today, you need to consider the depreciation of the cedi. The depreciation of the cedi is linked to the dollar, whether we like it or not, or to foreign currencies. These major currencies in the world, they are driving our cedi. So whatever you do, you need to consider that. Now, if they were taking a minimum wage, which was 13.53, which when you calculated it in dollars, it was $2.4.
Yeah.
And now you give a minimum wage of $1, which might even be lower than $1 if things don't improve in January. Are you taking them for granted? Are you taking us for a ride? I am no longer on the minimum wage. Now I work for myself. But I cannot look at the people I pay and pay them 416 Ghana cedis. under the circumstances, you see, Bella, this government should stop talking about COVID, Ukraine. Does it mean that when the bomb drops from Russia into Ukraine, the splinters are here? You see, when you fail, you have to accept that you have failed. When you fail. And yes, people are asking for the head of Ken Ofori-Atta. But he should not be the only one.
Who else should go?
The whole system, the whole financial and economic system, that comprises of the economic management team.
There should be a complete overhaul?
There should be a complete overhaul. I always say it. And I'm saying that if Ken is not making them work, they should come and tell us. Because he's not the only one. You see, when Kwarteng left, Liz Truss also left. Because when Kwarteng did that budget, he discussed it with Liz Truss, and Liz Truss and the team agreed that this is the way we are going. So Liz Truss felt that it would not be right for her to stay, because she said that she could not handle the economy the way that she wished to do so. So are you saying that Ken is the only person who does the budget?
Well, he's the leader of the team.
He's not the head of the economic management team.
But clearly, if we look at the way things are going, finance ministry, he heads it.
Yeah,
anyway.
but he should, everybody, because you see, they help him. He has a support team. When he went for the meeting, what is the name of that? The essential meeting. He didn't go alone.
No, he went with his lawyer. And
Yes,
team.
and team. So yeah, so those people, for them to come and sit there, to me, they are also responsible. Why were they there?
How are they responsible?
Are they not with him? You see, if you work in the public service, it is the team that advises the minister. I worked in the public service for so long. The team that advises the minister. In our case, when I worked in PURC, I was there for 13 years. We were under the office of the president. So you would advise. In our law, it said that you are an advisor to the president on issues regarding tariffs. You play an advisory role. And there are ministries. I worked in the free zones. We worked directly with the trade minister. And we advise the trade minister on investment. I work with GIPC. We work directly with Rollins. And we advise Rollins issues with investment. So there is always a team, a body that advises the minister that this is the way we should, unless somebody is telling us that Ken doesn't listen and he's recalcitrant. We haven't heard that. So if he has to go with his team. Because with the same kind of team, if a new minister comes, it will be the same thing. And we are not prepared to waste time. We've gone far below already. Ghanaians are not happy. Maybe they are not showing it outwardly.
Well, they're communicating through their MPs, which is why we saw the MPs come out and say that per the interaction that we had with our constituents, they say they don't want these people anymore. And so we are also relaying that information.
So if your constituents tell you that they do not want somebody, then you go and meet the president and he says, wait. You said your constituents. Your constituents, we talked about this thing, yes. Your constituents in this particular issue are higher than anybody else. They say we do not want this person. Yesterday I heard that the Greater Accra 33 constituencies have signed that they do not want Ken. Right? So it means that the 33, these MPs, if some are in the MPP, the people are saying they don't want Ken. But these same MPs who said that their constituents said that they should come out and say they don't want Ken, they went to the president and the president negotiated with them and they agreed. So who is in charge?
Well, they've gone back on their word and they're saying that we don't even want the finance minister to read the budget. We want him out
you see,
as soon as possible.
This backwards and forwards. We want the finance minister out. There is essential procedure going on the ad hoc parliamentary committee. How can you take the person out when the findings have not come to the end of it?
Well, it's just 7 days.
And so let's wait. If they say they want him out, they went to the president. The president said that they should wait for him to finish the negotiations with the IMF. And they agreed. So for me, how can you tell me that it is your constituents? If your constituent really told you, right? Because you see, the rumors going around is that they got to know that the NDC was going to move the essential motion. So they wanted to be ahead of the NDC. Before, I didn't believe it. But as it stands now, I'm thinking that, what is this mess? Even at the censure committee meeting, there was so much mess. The chairman was in, out. Uncle Katie was
Which
in,
of them?
out.
There were two chairmen. So.
Oh, it was as if for the NDC,
Dominic Ayine?
like it's as if he couldn't even speak. And Katie Hammond was stopping everybody from talking. Uncle Katie was all over the place. It didn't look like it was a serious thing that they were doing. I mean, I watched it. At a point, I decided to play games on my phone.
Okay.
Because there were interruptions in, out. And I was wondering what is going on.
Well, you're calling for a complete overhaul of the economic
Yes.
management team.
Yes.
How is that going to translate into a higher minimum wage eventually if they go and a new team is
You
put
see,
in place? Because we still owe a lot of money, about $450 million or $1 billion. I mean, there's a lot that we need to fix.
That is what we owe. But we don't know how much they have paid on interest. Do you get me? We don't. That is what we owe from 6 years, from Kwame Nkrumah till date. Everybody has a legacy debt.
Yeah.
From Kwame Nkrumah till date. So this government cannot say that they met legacy debts. Every government, from my Kwame Nkrumah down to whoever, always met legacy debts. And you deal, because the debts are debts for Ghana. Maybe it is time we looked at how we can, Ghana our own resources. You see, if you are not getting revenue through taxes, it is your own system that is not allowing you to do that. They have to expand the tax net. It is a lot of work for you to sit down to work it out. For you to expand the tax net, you need to be prudent. Everybody, including Kwame Pianim, an MPP person, said that the government had to be prudent. There were ministers who were finance ministers who did good by us. We can talk about Dr. Dufour. We can talk about Dr. Anthony Akotosei. We can talk about Baredu. Nobody asks for their head. Nobody asks for their head. They ask for the head of Kwame Pepra, just like this. But these are three people, nobody asks for their head. One is dead, two are alive. Dr. Anthony Akotosei was one of the best finance ministers. Even when he was a deputy minister, and he's still alive, why not consult him? There are people like this, Sibe Yeboah.
Yeah.
I don't know him, but he speaks great.
But speaking great is what has landed us where we are.
We
heard the president speak and talk about everything that was possible in this country.
It is not that kind of speaking.
It's been 6 years.
He knows when he speaks and you listen, you know that he knows what he is about.
Dr. Baumia talked about the economy and how we can fix the economy. We're here complaining about the fact that there should be an overhaul of the economic management team that he heads.
Sweetheart, were we not? I didn't really believe so many of the things. Because I knew that working in the public service, I knew most of the things they said were not possible. But who was I at the time to say that what you are saying is not possible?
So if we should not go by words necessarily, why do you think that what Marcus Bayebo is saying now?
No, when I listen to him, he's one of the people, but he brings out a lot of commitment and a lot of the issues. Do you get me?
Because he's not in power, maybe?
No, that is not, but he's still MPP.
No, but he's not in parliament anymore. He lost his seat.
No, that does not matter. When it comes to MPP, you can not be in power, but you are still MPP. They don't leave. That is one good thing about the New Patriotic Party. From generations to generations, they don't leave. Me, part of my family are UP.
Would he have been speaking like this if he were in parliament?
Yes, he would have.
Part of the majority.
When you look at him, he would have spoken like that.
Okay.
I don't think he spoke out of bitterness, because the body language will tell you whether the man is speaking out of bitterness or he's genuine. And even if somebody is speaking out of bitterness, the good in that person comes out.
Okay. Please land for me, so I bring lawyer in there.
Do you get me? So the point is that we cannot continue talking about COVID. My dear, COVID, if you had COVID, and you got over $3 billion as support, and what did you use the money for? If you had COVID, and now you are taking a COVID levy, everything that you buy in this country, the COVID levy is there. The AGI even asks a government to take it off. It is still there. How much has been accrued to the COVID levy? When they brought the COVID levy, they said they are going to use it to pay for the electricity and water that we use for free. Today, when the Auditor General's report came, it was clear that that money has not been paid. It's still standing in the books of the utilities. So how do we always blame COVID and we do not accept that we have gone through some form of mismanagement? You see, the president cares. Yes, they say he cares. But how can you come and talk to us and you tell us that he can't pay the day? You care. And when you are coming to talk to us, you tell us that he can't pay the day, so we should keep quiet. A hungry man will always talk and speak, whether he can't pay the day or not.
Lawyer, if you look at the food inflation rates, the disaggregation of October 2022, now, as at October, food inflation was 43.7%. The month before, it was 37.8%. So month-on-month food inflation was 3.2%. Now, if you look at how much were imported, the inflation for imported items is 43.7%. Inflation for locally produced items is 39.1%. This is the real situation on the ground. And even this, when you go into the streets, into people's pockets, they'll tell you that my inflation rate is nowhere near that 40% that we're being told. It's 100%. If my inflation is over 100%, personal inflation, and there's a chance to increase the minimum wage, and all we get is just about 10% of that, how am I supposed to survive as a citizen? Even though you have told me that you considered quite a number of things, including the economic challenges we're facing, cost of living, sustainability of businesses. Are they at par at this point?
Well, good morning to you and good morning to everybody who's watching us. I believe strongly, Bella, that we are currently living in very, very, very difficult times. We are in very uncharted waters. We are actually living in very, very, very turbulent times, if I must say. That your whole treasury appears to be in disarray, complete disarray, utter disarray. That your government itself, led by President Akufo-Addo himself, is totally sitting aloof and watching. Your vice president, who promised you with all the might that he could muster in whatever verbosity or jocularity he could muster, is currently today gone mute and disappeared entirely, except for coming out to defend his person. So if we are going to ask workers in Ghana to accept a minimum wage, which is under 15 cedis, it is actually equivalent to $1 if you look at what we experienced in the past. Yeah. So even if it appears to have gone up slightly, the position in terms of our inflation rates is just as high. And I believe that the expert who spoke on the labor conversation was spot on. This will actually go nowhere. It will actually make no difference to the poor Ghanaian worker or citizen. Indeed, what I must also state is that there is a rate of index called the Food Sufficiency Index. And year on, we have gone lower. What it means is that about 1.2 million persons living in Ghana are currently living under what the basic food sufficiency rate should be or ought to be. So that is a fact too. Next, we also know that inflation is posited actually to hit almost 90% by December 2022. It wipes out whatever this increment is supposed to do. We are also told presently that inflation is about 40.7%, the highest in the history of this country. And so certainly that also takes away from this 14.88 cedis, which is equivalent currently actually to just a mere $. We are looking at a country where we pay at least 81 cedis per gallon of petrol. We are paying for V-Power, that's for those who can afford it, 95 Ghana cedis per gallon. For diesel, which is the most commonly used, we are paying 103 Ghana cedis per gallon. And kerosene, basic kerosene, is 48 cedis per gallon. This morning, I'm sure you've seen the water gallons, the water tankers across our country. Water is currently also under threat. And yet look at the bills that we pay for water and electricity each month. We haven't spoken about the increments of those ones. We haven't spoken about school fees and feeding of children and taking them to school, buying basic medications. I'm sure you listened to the story from Tamale Hospital, where they cannot even give patients basic paracetamol. The stores are literally empty and there's nothing that the dispensing units can do. Nobody is speaking to all these indexes that feed into a person's minimum wage. Bella, I have no doubt that the sloganeering has brought us where we are. The failed and botched attempt at a certain bravado is also why we are where we are.
Which sloganeering exactly?
Oh, but we promised everything from A to Z. I believe that we told Ghanaians that we're capable of everything. We told Ghanaians that prior governments had made no effort and that we'll make an even better effort. But let me tell you, we can blame COVID and Ukraine for all we want. We can sing from the high heavens, but let's put it very beautifully. Even in 2018, at the time when the last IMF program was actually still in its pendency, the government even made some false misrepresentations, if you remember, about the current arrears at the time in terms of how much they had borrowed. They even complained at the time about the lack of what? Fiscal discipline. In the last few years, at least we now know that they even exited the program well ahead of the completion date. And the minute they exited the program, what did we see? We saw borrowing on a level never before witnessed. And in all the borrowings that we've taken so far, we have absolutely nothing to show. In the course of COVID, Bella, we received well above $3 billion US dollars. All that money has gone down the drain. And you heard the hearing involving our health minister, and we heard how that money was literally shared amongst party executives to contest an
But if you
election.
say shared among party executives, you make it sound as if all the money was given to party
At least
executives. It's just
most of
one
it.
person's
Look, I always-
allegation that has still not been substantiated.
But you see, that's the point. When we speak to evidence, sometimes the perception of something is even greater than what you provide in documents. If we have a government that can mislead the whole IMF, that can provide reports that are even full of misrepresentations with false accounting methods. Look, I think that we belabor the points when we try to lay some level of credit or even give government some credibility. Presently, all of us, whatever credibility we have, is reposed in the custodian for us. That is our trustee, led by President Akufo-Addo and his administration. That credibility is at an all-time low when you look at all the conversations with the IMF, with the World Bank, even with the citizens of Ghana. We were told that we should be what? Citizens and not spectators. Now we have taken a step and we have called on the president that we elected to dismiss his finance minister. Bella, everything is leadership. The rest, as they say, is course. If we speak about other jurisdictions and how they have survived, the countries that we speak about, they are also welfare states, where they have a minimum allowance that goes to persons who are living below the poverty lines, that goes to persons who have a certain number of children, that goes to persons with disabilities, that go to persons who are unable to work. These are all things that they do as a way of what? Ameliorating the suffering on their people. What have we seen in our side of the world? Can you imagine the cost to Ghana of the current impasse in our treasury, in the space where our finances are discussed, where policies involving our sustenance as human beings are discussed? It means that everything is at a standstill. Even the conversations with the IMF have probably gone nowhere. Why the inflation?
How do you know that? Because, I mean, even at the votes of censure proceedings, we heard the counsel for the minister saying that he is still handling the negotiations while sitting there. And so that is why they should even spring up surprises on them.
Can I tell you something? That confidence in financial markets is huge business. It's like character. People trade in it, but it has no currency. Where there's credibility, where there's integrity, where your books are clean, where your presentations are genuine, where your representations and spokespersons speak to the best of their ability to the truthfulness of the situation, where all these Fitch and other rating agencies have told us in no uncertain terms that there's a certain recklessness that crept in, that there's some loans that were borrowed without recourse to the requisite financial provisions, that indeed the financial accounting processes that we ourselves as the people passed in Parliament have been largely flouted, flagrantly flouted. Look, I would expect even that by now, as citizens, we should even be in court beyond the process currently going on in Parliament to demand also, look, our Constitution is very clear. The preamble speaks to what? Probity, accountability, and transparency. When a president takes the oath of office, these are the pledges that he makes to the good people of Ghana. This is the agreement, the contract that he signs. The fiduciary burden is on leadership to defend at all times the good people of Ghana and our reputation. When our treasury is currently in tatters, and you see, what is really sad is when you remember, you recall the conversations.
Which ones
that
exactly?
we were never going to the IMF. If your finance minister,
knowing
fully well, as a repository of everything that your financial books tell us, tells you on a Monday morning that we will never resort to the IMF again, it meant that at the time, he had a certain knowledge. He had done some due diligence. He was speaking advisedly. At the moment when we decided to speak to the IMF, the finance minister should have done what? Honorably resigned.
He should have resigned?
Absolutely. He told us the e-levy was going to come and be a representative replacement for all that we had lost and all that Ghana required to stop us from going to the IMF. That has equally failed. So basically, the individual who you put in that office is clearly incompetent. Clearly has no knowledge about the
How so? I
ministry
mean,
he's handling.
he made a statement.
Has clearly
And a statement
failed.
that came out, we were told that the president was the one who had asked that we start negotiations with the IMF. I mean, that's his boss. If your boss tells you that stay on because even though you have said we shouldn't go to the IMF, I think we should go ahead and lead the negotiations. You're saying he should have resigned at that point?
Bella, you're sitting right here, are you not? I'm sure if you had some problem with Media General or something was wrong, and you felt very strongly that you had a good position, that you knew exactly what our finances were, that we could stay the course and not go to the IMF, I'm sure that the boss would have listened to him. You know, I think that in all humility, in all due deference, eschewing all the arrogance that has characterized this conversation, at least leaders must learn to take what responsibility. You know, in all humility, leaders must learn to accept the feelings of their own policies. In all deference to all the defense we are hearing today, that for the first time in the annals of Ghana's history, we watch our own finance minister seated before our parliament, questioned. When you are a co-founder of a bank or financial institution, whatever actions they take are clearly as a result of your own personal influence and involvement. So when we hear, and the finance minister told us this, that his company in transaction fees alone had benefited 151 million US dollars, was Ghana cedis, I think, on the highest platform ever. What else do you need? Anywhere else, that is a clear breach of ethics, a breach of our sovereignty as a people, a clear conflict of interest situation that such an individual ought not ordinarily to be in office.
Loss of natural justice. We're yet to hear from him.
Don't worry.
On Friday.
We are all allowed now, after he spoke on the floor of Parliament, to put whatever interpretations were. In any case, we are not dictated to, in our minds, in our own analysis, by what we are told by government or spokespersons. We read to, we listen to, we watch the body language of our finance minister. We know the number of times that he has defended his work and his work ethics. We've heard him many a time repeat this mantra. So once you find out that there's even a scintilla of doubt raised, he ought to take responsibility.
Okay.
But let me tell you something. Part of the reasons why we recruit, we employ individuals, we even elect into office certain individuals, is because they make representations about what they intend to do for us. I speak directly to the good people of Ghana, that let's remember that highfalutin words, that promises that are unsubstantiated, that promises we make that we cannot in any way defend, are matters that we should start to closely examine.
Okay.
That we should put people to strict proof for representations that they make. That when they make false statements, we ought to demand that they account to us fully when they start to fail. I have no doubt in my mind, and Ghanaians know this, and I say this without any fear of contradiction, that our president genuinely ought not at this moment be in office.
The president. Now it's not the finance minister. The president should also go.
Everything is leadership. The rest is course.
Well,
that for a lot less.
We'll find out from Akosia what she thinks about it.
We demanded we demanded, in all the arrogance we could muster at the time, that Ghanaians should either vote for one party or neglect the other.
Okay.
We promised that we would be what? Enter a period of austerity.
Lawyer, please learn from
and
me.
put in measures that ought to work and turn this economy around. Look,
Okay.
Bella, it is to our own disgrace that we sit here and try to defend the indefensible.
Lawyer, please let me take
I
a
would
break
want
at
to
this
put
point.
it on record that everything is leadership, the rest is course.
Okay.
And that for that reason alone, our president, his vice president, and of course, his finance minister
Should go.
go.
Okay. Well, one other person that people are asking to resign or be relieved of his duties, that Greek minister. Recently, we saw the PFJ market, and now he and the ministry, of course, brought some foodstuff to their Greek ministry to sell because he said that the middlemen were profiteering. In fact, it wasn't the high cost of fuel that was leading to the high cost of food produce in the country. Now he's moved to the markets with the food produce. We'll come back and talk about this new development and what my guests make of this.